right, everybody. It's Leafs Talk. JD Bunkis, Sam McKee. It feels like forever, man. I'm gonna be rusty tonight. I've been out of the mix,
Yeah, you're off yesterday, probably gallivanting around Toronto, going to
gallivanting.
going to overpriced cocktail bars, being seen in the scene. It's probably where you were yesterday, What do
Yeah,
you
something like that.
got?
Yeah,
Something new there.
something like that. I can't believe you're wearing that lid.
You like it, eh? It's nice.
It's gorgeous, but
Yeah,
it's
I
kind
know.
of traitorous for you.
Nah,
Like,
it's an Eastern Conference team. They're, it's
wow.
I go to 2 or 3 games a year out there. I went into the shop, had a little
Okay.
peruse, and look at this baby. Look at that.
It's dude. Like I said, it's
Look at
a
this. Look at the
gorgeous
logo on
lid.
the side.
Yeah, it's beautiful. He's
Oh yeah.
wearing an Oshawa
Yeah.
Generals cap
Yep.
for those that are listening on the pod. This is
Yep.
a dyed in the wool Owen Sound Attack fan who had seasons tickets, who was raised on the seasons tickets.
Yep.
Listen, your whole sports fandom,
Mhm.
I have never called into question because football, you cheer for the AFC, which is the
Yeah,
weirdest thing. You cheer for
cheer for
all
the
the
whole
teams in
conference.
the
Yeah,
AFC.
yeah, yeah,
Since I've known you, you've
yeah.
legitimately been a fan of every single team in the AFC North minus the Ravens, where you've had like a real true dalliance with either of these teams. I thought there would never come a day where I'd catch you in merch that was outside of the Owen Sound Attack. This one's a
Yeah,
little shocking. I'm thrown off to start the show today.
I love
Is
it.
this
I love it.
is the theme of tonight being a traitor? Dubas,
Oh,
the Penguins,
it's
Achari,
funny.
you, the Generals?
It's funny that you said like Dubas in your tweet because I don't know. I wasn't thinking about it a whole lot. I went on the
Mm,
morning show with Jesse and Gunner on Friday, and they were trying to juice up the narrative, and they're like, you're gonna be cheering. Like it just to me, I really wasn't thinking about it a whole lot. I wasn't like, oh, Achari got him. It's like I really didn't care. To be honest, it's not like they're good. They're not very good. The Leafs aren't very good right now. Like it's not like they're killing the whole league. They lost to Buffalo last night. They're below 500 coming into tonight. It's not like
mhm.
they're lighting it up. It's just there's not a big like ton of juice for me in terms of the Dubas. If it's a playoff series for sure, but like I haven't really thought about Dubas a whole lot if I'm being totally honest.
This is an interesting spin from you, considering I am taking off December 16th, and you said, "Buddy, how are you going to miss that game? It's the Dubas game. It's
In Toronto,
Penguins.
it's
It's here
it's
in
different.
Toronto.
It's different.
It's
And
so
you
it's
were taking the
different because
game
it's
off
in
regardless.
Toronto."
Yeah, I think it is different in Toronto. Anyways, I
Uh,
just, if there's games you're going to miss, like the Penguins Saturday night, Sidney
yeah,
Crosby, we don't need to get into Leafs talk scheduling here though, but like
yeah.
it's just, it's Sid. That's what it comes down to here. Like I get more
You said the
excited from
Dubas game though, and I'm surprised that this is your opinion
yeah.
because, like, to me, so far this season, there have been very few conversations about the Leafs and Dubas, and there's been some trail living stuff because the Klingberg signing really didn't work out, and I think it's over, right? Klingberg, to
Mhm.
me, it's unlikely he ever plays another game for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I feel like if he rehabs and he wants to come back, he's a salary that gets dealt in a move, and otherwise he's LTIR, right?
Yeah.
So that signing didn't really work out. The Reeves signing, obviously, despite the goal yesterday, didn't really work out. People had
Mhm.
been questioning the impact of the forwards that he brought in, and so there was a little bit of, hey, what's up with Tree? What's up with the signings? Did he do a good job this offseason? Did he do a poor job?
Yep.
But it wasn't really centered around Dubas. I agree with you in this sense, is to me, there hasn't been as much Dubas sliding doors narrative as I thought there was going to be, given just how tumultuous the breakup was. But I think that's just what happens when you're this far into a season where you're
That's
going
exactly
back
it.
and forth. Right.
That's
It
what I was
just
gonna say. If this game was like the first weekend of the year, it's a
yeah,
completely
be
different
huge.
conversation for me. But like I have a pretty good feel of what both these teams are at this point of the
Mhm.
season. One of them's outside the playoff picture at American Thanksgiving, and one is barely on the inside. So it's like to me, these are two pretty mid teams at the moment. So I don't know. Like I wasn't excited to be like, oh, they got to beat Dubas. I'm fired up to watch Sidney
Mm.
Crosby against the Leafs on a Saturday night. So I like, I'm sure there's Dubasites out there that are just like, see, because Carlson scores the game winner. That's his guy that he wanted to trade for
Buddy,
here.
Dubas built
A
two
chart,
mid teams.
a,
Way to
a,
go. Like,
a Chari, of course, scores the game tying goal right along the goal line.
mhm.
Like it's, there's all these things that you could draw up, but I'd be lying to you. And maybe it's not the juicy narrative if you want, but I wasn't
Well, we
like,
definitely have
gotta
to
win.
start with this because this is the biggest story. Like, I don't know what to tell you, bud. Like, most people are talking about Dubas and facing the former GM and his team. Like, I don't think that this is hey, no one gives a crap about Kyle Dubas facing his former club. Like, I do think that a lot of fans were upset about the exit. And I think
Mhm.
that this is now the natural time. And I'm glad
Yeah.
this became the time because you're right. The only ways that this would have come up more consistently through the season would
Mhm.
be if the Leafs were amazing and Tree Living's signings had worked out to just this unbelievable degree. And people were like, see, this was it all along, right?
Yeah.
This is the guy that might have unlocked something. Or if it was one extreme or the other. But you nailed it. Both of these teams are mid,
Yeah.
like both of these teams are just okay. And you look at it and you can make excuses for both of these GMs because neither of them has been able to put like their long-term print on
Yeah.
whatever version their new teams are going to be, right? But the one thing I will say is I thought about this week and I thought about this tonight is it's a great sliding doors of what would the Leafs look like had Dubas stayed? What would have been different about this team? Would they have been able to retain Shen? Would they have been able to retain Ryan O'Reilly? Would they have brought back Noel Acciari, who's a guy that he liked? Would they have brought in Graves instead of spending that money on Klingberg? Like, would the team be better? I think it's going to be a fair question and something people are going to look at. But the reason why you probably don't feel that much juice
Yeah.
is it just feels too early to tell.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to it there, but if one team was like elite and one team was really
Yep,
bad, it's a way bigger storyline. But yeah, to me, like I don't know, I'm surprised how little I think about Dubas and how like it was such a huge story here, and he was such a polarizing guy, and he was such a huge part of the conversation with Leaf fandom, right? Like it was politics here, man. You're either on one side or the other. Like
for sure.
it divided a fan base. It was a huge thing for 5-6 years in this city, and it just comes down to it. I never think about him. Like I'm not like, oh, I wish they would have signed someone here because he would have done that, or like it's really crazy to me that it really is just out of my lexicon.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I will say that
we
that
didn't
is
even
the
allude to
nicest
it. We
thing.
didn't even allude to it on Real Kipper and Born on Friday. Now that I'm thinking back, we didn't even talk about Dubas at all. I know we were
Oh.
coming off a game, and it's like we're reacting to the Chicago game, and it's a little bit different. But like, I don't know. Did. I just feel like it wasn't a ton on the station. Not everybody was doing it. I don't know. I just feels like
I
it's
did a
kind of a
full half
lost.
hour, so
Yeah,
on
it's a
my
lost.
podcast. So
It's with
subscribe to the
with
JD
Colby.
Bunkis
With Colby,
podcast if you
yeah,
want to have the,
yeah,
the pulse of the city, the
yeah.
actual
I don't
guy
know,
that talks about the things that the fans want to talk about, not just selfish three guys who do whatever
but
they
like,
want to do
but
on.
do you think like I don't know? I haven't got any
Yeah.
Dubas. Like maybe we just have different people that follow us, but like people are like
Yeah.
Dubas beat us. I don't know.
I had a lot of a lot of Leaf fans and some that as well were texting me about wanting to beat Dubas. I think that's pretty natural.
Yeah,
Like to
I guess
me,
that's fair.
the most embarrassing outcome to me for the Leaf season would be losing to the Penguins in the first
Yeah,
round.
I think there's a chance that neither of them are there in the first round, so maybe we'll have to
Okay, let's
cross
get
that
into
bridge when we
this.
get there.
Dude, the Leafs have 5 regular season wins this year.
Regulation wins.
Yeah, sorry, what I say? Yeah,
Yeah,
regular
regular
season. No,
season
not
wins.
regular season.
Not the
Yeah,
Oilers, but
no, they're not the Oilers. They got 5 regulation
yeah,
wins.
yeah.
This is now. I was looking it up.
Mhm.
Matthews now has a goal and 2 assists in his last 7 games.
Yeah.
What's
I think
are we saying something's wrong with the Leafs? Is it fair to say something's wrong with the Leafs?
I don't know. Like they came off winning 4 games in a row and all that momentum in Sweden, and I'm sure there's people that'll point to that them getting back into the rhythm and having a kind of a shaky start to this weekend here. But
Those people
I
need to shut up.
I know, agree. These are 25 to 35-year-old professional elite athletes
Yeah.
that can suck it up and be fine. They're not going. It's not
Red
going to
Wings
kill
came
them.
back and beat the Bruins right away. So
And the
like
Devils.
it's all right.
They played
Yeah.
on the Wednesday after coming back and they shut out the Devils. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
I just I don't know if they're that good. Like I really don't. Like I think they have some chances to add to this team in terms of, maybe making with that move with Klingberg and getting a defenseman in here. I don't know. They got to add center depth. Like there is chances to me to improve this squad to have it be like a plucky playoff team, but it
Mhm.
just doesn't feel, I don't know. It's the 4 guys really. It's a very similar team, but the bottom 6 just feels worse. That's it.
See, it's funny, man, because to me, if you would have told me before the season started, like Nyes to me was their best guy tonight. You agree?
I thought uh, I would say he was the most noticeable he's been in a while. So you would say would jump out to me. But
Yeah.
Nylander, Tavares,
Yeah.
and Bertuzzi were by far the best
Yeah,
guys
that's
in
the
five.
best line. No
Yeah,
question.
but
They were
those
really
3
good.
guys were really good, and the only reason they really had a chance in this game was because those guys like sustained pressure for a lot of it.
Yep. I totally agree. But at this
Yeah.
point of the year,
Mhm.
you would say, hey, Tavares looks like his old self. He
Yeah.
looks great. He's
Mhm.
centering a great line for the Leafs. Nylander's having a career year. You've got Nyes, who looks, I would say, as good, if not a little bit better than what you expected him to be this
Mhm.
year, right? Like, would you say that's fair?
Yep.
Okay, you're getting something from Nick Robertson. Like, you're getting something from him. He's actually filling into your bottom six, and he's giving you a little bit of goal scoring. He's
Mhm.
at least a player on your roster. Um, your Max Domi signing has worked out all right. He doesn't have any goals. I'll tell you that before. Hey, Max doesn't have any goals, but
Shoot
he's
one
had
in
some
there, pal.
assists. And he's been all right. David Kampf is normal and been kind of David Kampf. Like, it's hard to find the spot on the roster right now. Like, I agree with you. I totally agree. And I think that the blue line is probably the number one thing that you would
Yeah.
say that's the real spot of talent that they need. But if you just go through individually on the roster, guy by guy, it doesn't feel like, we had the whipping boy moments with Klingberg, right? Where like it's
Yeah.
all his fault. We had the whipping boy moments with Reeves, all his fault. And now that you've
Bertuzzi got in
removed
there a
those
little
two
bit.
guys,
Bertuzzi got in
what?
there a little bit. Bertuzzi got into the whipping boy
Yeah.
conversation a little bit too there for a while.
But now that you've removed these two guys and you just see kind of the team, it just, yeah, it doesn't feel like there's all that much that's special despite all these individual accomplishments of the players. And to me, it's like the big story of tonight and the big story moving forward here is that, listen, there is one thing that's special about the Leafs, and it's supposed to be that their top six is better than anybody else's.
Yeah.
And finally, they get this Nylander Tavares thing working out, where in years past, we wondered about the chemistry of those two guys. And this one, I'm willing to say, like, I get people who aren't freaking out or who are even annoyed that I'm bringing this up because the track record is pretty undeniable. But
Mm.
just until like the last few minutes of the game, I thought just a pretty lifeless night from Marner and Matthews again,
Oh,
who have been
absolutely.
struggling.
No, no question. Like they have been they weren't very good in Sweden. Like it's just they haven't been. I think I saw Sportsnet stats that this is the sixth game this season where Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner were both held without a point. Feels like a lot at this point with those two guys.
Yeah.
Like, Marner for a stretch last year, I know he had that point streak, but even outside of that point streak, it felt like he was every game he had a point or he'd only go one game without a point.
Dominant.
I so Matthews to me, off after that torrid start where he was unbelievable for the first week and a half of the season. I mean, he accumulated so many points, so many
Mhm.
goals, but he just feels like last year's Matthews all over again right now. Like it just feels like there's long stretches of the game where he's not asserting himself like he did at the start of the year. Like there's these long lulls where he's not impacting the game. He's not taking it to the center of the ice. He's gaining the zone and he's turning back. He's looking for a trailer. That just seems super,
Yep.
I don't know what the word is, disjointed, not
Passive.
connected, passive. Great word. I don't know what's going on with them. And to me, tonight is a perfect opportunity, like for the tinkerer. Like, hey man, you're the tinker guy. That's like you're kind of your thing, Sheldon. To
Mhm.
like change up the lineup, get something else out there. Like just throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. You got 11-7. You got you're already got it weirdo. Like try Matthews with Domi and Yarncroc, or try him with, I don't care like who it is, just some different semblance. They just played every shift together. And it's like,
Mhm.
who's running the team here? We're all watching this. It's like maybe you got to go in there and say, "Hey guys, you're not playing together for a little bit here." It just
Mhm.
feels like they are running it. It's their choice. They want to do it. They continue to do it. It's time to break them up. It really
Here's the
is. Like
problem.
what?
Here's the problem. You just said it. Their best line right now, and the
Mhm.
one thing that's working is Bertuzzi, Tavares, and
Leave
Nylander.
that line. Leave that line.
And I at this point, just given the up and down nature to me of Bertuzzi's start to his Leafs career,
Mhm.
I really don't want to mess with that. Like I don't
Okay.
want to take him away from those guys. So then what do you do? Like if you split up Matthews and Marner, all of a sudden one of them, like, and by one of them I mean like it's Marner who's on the third line. Like you're kind of faced with this Sophie's choice of either you break up your best line
Well,
and you go to something different, or you're limiting minutes of guys that you really want playing, 20 plus every night, which Sheldon Keefe does. So I don't see it happening anytime soon unless they're willing to break up Tavares, Nylander, and Bertuzzi, which like
yeah.
you tell me that part of it and I hate it. Like I just don't know what they're supposed to do. Here's the other part of it too, dude,
There's
is
ways to get guys up near 20 minutes. There's like he's going to get lots of power
mm,
play time later in games. Just to me, like for a accountability factor throughout the lineup, where it's like the
mhm.
guys that are lower in the lineup are watching their shifts and they're playing 25 minutes. I know they're the best players, but they just haven't been good enough. There's not enough life to their games. Like,
Hey
I
buddy,
watch
I agree.
but like, but you're saying that you can't split them up, that you can't move them up and down the lineup. Who says who?
Yep.
Says
Well,
who? The
I'll tell you
coach?
this.
Management?
Bro, this is the toughest part though too, is that even if they have this happen, right? Even if they're like, okay, we're splitting you up. When you say the who runs the team thing, that's the most annoying part is they'll be split up for a little while, but they're like in the bunk beds together being like, don't worry, you'll be
Yeah.
back soon. Or they got like the tin can in the movies that like they throw down the line to the other person's place on the tin can on a wire. It's like, don't worry, I'll see you soon. Like you'll be back on my line. Like this is just going to be a week. We're in trouble. Like the ultimate end point here is that the two of them end up playing together and that they're kind of in control. So I agree. It just, I love what you said about it feels like last year's Matthews. The problem is it doesn't feel like last year's Marner. They put up that graphic about how he still got the 20 points in the same amount of games. They're like, oh, it's all perception. I was like, I don't know. I disagree. Like, this is not a perception thing to me. This is a guy who's racked up a bunch of points in a small number of games. But last year we were asking questions of like, hey, is this Marner's team? Like he's really going. He's been the best Maple Leaf through the first half of the season.
Yeah.
He's carrying Matthews at times. I just haven't seen that version of Marner very much
No.
this season. I don't. It's almost like the Leafs are cursed. Like Nylander figures out that, all right, I'm going to get going and I'm going to be great. And then one of the other ones disappears. Like, can we just see a game where all three of those guys are
No.
dominant at the same time? Is it
No.
even possible?
I don't know. I don't know, but it's just really frustrating to watch the way that top line looks right now because
Yep.
I think it's the reason, and like hockey's hard and they go through these stretches. Every player goes through these
Yeah.
stretches.
Yeah.
I understand that, but like what their potential is together, and we've seen it. But it just feels like this year it's been way more bad than good. And
Mhm.
it's crazy to say that with Austin Matthews, who's close to the league in goals, and Marner's got 20 points in however many games they've played. And like, I know it's champagne problems, and other fan bases are probably like, oh my God, like stop whining about it. But they've set themselves a certain standard here. We know how good they are. We know how good they look when they're on, and it just hasn't been there a ton. So
Mhm.
uh, to me, they need a wake up call, split up. I don't know what you do. I know the third line perception thing is hard with Marner. That's boy, that could go a lot of ways. I don't want to go into do the show with Kipper when they make that move, but it's just like I don't know. Something's got to be done because you can't just keep banging your head against the wall and hoping they come out of this. You gotta do some coaching here. Time to
Yep.
tinker.
I like that we're mad that he tinkers too much, and now you're like, he's tinkering too little.
Well,
Just say,
no, like the thing is, he tinkers back to this.
mm-hmm.
Like he'll go where once in a while he'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to tinker it," and then they have one bad shift. He's like, "Okay, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander, we're all doing this. We're doing the same thing we always do." Like he doesn't like have patience with his tinkers. He's very tinker selective. That's what I'm getting at here.
Uh, I would actually put Nylander with Matthews. Like I would just swap and put Marner back with Tavares and put Nylander up on the top line. That's just what I would do. I would
With
try to get
Nyes,
Nylander. What?
with Nyes.
Yeah, with Nice. That's the
Mm,
only thing I do. I just flip the right wingers. I just say, you go here, you go there, and let's see if something's different. Let's see if we can still get as much as we're getting out of Bertuzzi and with Tavares, turn Tavares maybe a little bit more into a goal scorer and ask if Nylander can try to jumpstart Matthews and get him going again. Maybe a little bit more possession time, maybe a few more looks at the net. I don't know. Maybe just something. You know what pissed me off the most about Matthews tonight is I understand when guys are in a bit of a slump or a funk or not scoring or whatever.
yeah,
He had no hits.
I know. And
Like, can you mix?
he's been hitting this year. Like he's
Yeah.
actually like high in a lot of lists for like body contact. He makes, and I mean, the hit stat is so greasy. Like it's a barn dependent thing with guys where they get the stats. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Dude,
very
did he play?
subjective.
Did he have a single physical moment in this game?
No.
Did he have one moment where you watched him and went like, okay, like the great players, and this is what I love so much about Sid too, is you bring a puck around Sidney Crosby, and Matthews does this too really well. Like I don't want to act like he doesn't do this, but I just
No.
meant tonight.
Yeah,
A
tonight.
puck goes around Sidney Crosby, and you're in a battle, and he is just grinding you like
Mad.
you are in hell.
Mad
Hell.
he's near you. Like you don't want to be near him. He's
Yes.
mad at you that you're near
He's a
him.
horrible.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that way about Matthews tonight. I didn't feel
Mhm.
like, oh boy, at least if you bring the puck around Matthews, he's going to terrorize you. He was, again, passive. Just wasn't a
So
very good game for a guy that I felt like should have showed up with a bit of a desperate effort on his 500th game.
to me, if I'm doing the line shift up and I'm
Mm-hmm.
breaking up that second line, I'm not separating Willie and Bertuzzi. I think a lot of the reason that Bertuzzi has found himself here is because he's playing with Willie. And if you're going to do the top line, I'm going Willie, Matthews, Bertuzzi. That's how I'm doing the change. And then I'm putting Marner, Tavares, and Nyes as your second line. If that's if
Fine
I
with it.
was if I was gonna do the juggle, and I've loved Bertuzzi. Bertuzzi has been excellent
Same.
the last 4 or 5 games. Like
I was gonna say
legitimately
if it wasn't
exact.
Nyes for me that had the most jump, it
Yeah.
was him that had the most jump tonight.
This is what I've seen since was it the Calgary game? It feels like so long ago, but it was only like 5 games ago. But the Calgary game on the
Mhm.
Friday night, the Hall of Fame game, since that game, he's been exactly what I expected Tyler Bertuzzi to be. And he just looks really good, except for his style on the ice is atrocious. That neck guard.
I love it.
I mean, the neck guard, I love that he put it on. I love that boys are putting it on. But God, it could
Mhm.
look more like a guy at ASHL. Like look more like a guy in the Zigzags League. Like, oh my Lord, he looks
That's what I
horrible.
love about him.
He
He just
looks
looks like a
horrible.
beer leaguer.
Yeah,
I understand why he's wearing the neck guard, and I
yeah.
support the guys that are
I wear
wearing
neck
it. But
guard.
I will
Yeah,
say, it gave me Thomas Plekanec vibes, and I didn't
yeah,
like that. I didn't like that he looked like Plekanec, like Dusty Plekanec.
yeah. Uh,
Nice
yeah.
rebound for him though tonight. That was the best play of the game. Was just it's a big win off the draw for Tavares. Good pass from Mo. Tavares
Mhm.
gets a nice little tip on it, and then bang, Bertuzzi just is in one of the ugly areas
Right
again and
spot.
just finishes it home and is in the
Yeah.
right spots. I wonder how much of it, like, remember go back to, hey, simplify your game for Bertuzzi?
Mhm.
That just feels like that's really all it was, watching him have success. Like the things that he does where you go, oh man, that's so great, is just winning puck battles and being in the right spot
And
in front of the
shooting it in
net.
the net, like
Yeah,
chopping it home. Just
that's it.
chop, chop,
That's the whole
chop, chop,
difference.
buddy. That's it.
Chop away.
Yeah.
Uh Worst moment of the game.
Mm.
The top line gets scored on immediately after that goal. 28 seconds later. Just
That's been a horrible trend this year, man.
I
I
know.
don't know how many times that's happened. Like, I'd love someone to dig into that if there's someone out there that's smarter than me. But how many times has it happened this year where within 2 minutes of the Leafs scoring, the other team scored a goal? I bet you it's happened 5 or 6 times this year. It's
Mhm.
been really bad. And it's a noticeable thing. It's a horrible sort of rhythm to get into because these things kind of build these little things. And it's like it goes within a group where we got one and then they get one quick. And it's like you start thinking about it. But I don't know how you quantify it, but it's really, really frustrating as a fan to watch it because you're like, oh, you just get momentum and your top line goes out there and immediately serves one up. It's not a very fun thing.
Dude, I think one of the frustrating things with me with the Leafs this year is that you look at some of the stuff that's their trouble areas.
Mm-hmm.
They still let in goals too frequently at the end of periods. They still
Yep.
give up leads too frequently. They give up leads that they earn immediately after they gain them. A
Mm-hmm.
part of this is that they've got a bad penalty kill that was all right tonight facing the Penguins that just somehow have five power play all-stars that you'd pick out and
It's
go,
Carlson. It's Carlson.
yeah,
That's
but
what it is.
they're awful. They're 30th, and the
Yeah.
Leafs did that tonight. But it's like Leafs turn the puck over a lot. They still have a bunch of passive nights. You just see like the lack of attention to detail. It's frustrating to watch some of these issues pop up and be the same as from a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me a little bit about the Blue Jays with the base running issues they had
Yeah.
again this year, where you go, I really don't have patience for this because this was the whole message going into this year.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like, man, take better care of the puck and have better attention to details opening and closing periods. Like these are just two things that I feel like should be pretty simple fixes. Like the penalty kill, you don't have any defensemen that can really do it properly, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the personnel for that. It's going to be a work in progress. The bench miners are at the point where Sheldon keeps bubbling over, but at least at the beginning, you went, okay, he's juggling the lines every single night. It's different
Uh,
combinations of guys, whatever. They're down the defenseman, blah, 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 blah.
Seven
But
is insane.
those, yeah, but those things, I'm over it. And I was sick of it again tonight, and I was annoyed by it. And I almost like expected it when they just gave that goal up right away. I was like, yeah, of
Yeah.
course they did. They just can't even enjoy that for 10 seconds.
Um, the one thing I wanted to mention was I don't know. Can we do a Sid chat?
Yeah, sure. I was gonna
I
say I don't have much else. I was just gonna
no.
say this is my favorite jersey battle.
It's a great jersey battle. Those jerseys are so nice, and it's crazy they
Mhm.
ever like did. Their gold ones were okay, like the early Sid era. Those ones are
Yeah,
okay, but like the fact that they ever went away from this is one of the most
nuts.
absurd sports decisions ever. Like it's so
Really is.
nice. And the least white with them, they went back to the white buckets on the road. They didn't stick with the
Yep.
blue. That was a Sweden only thing, I
Sweden
guess.
only.
But I am finding myself watching Sid, and as getting older and being like in my 30s as a sports fan and seeing guys full careers, you start like
Mhm.
getting reflective of guys, and I'm just so happy Sid's still around and just looks like Sid. Like he gives me LeBron vibes, but he's just like not the corniest dude ever. He's just like he's had this long career where he's won and he's been a stud his whole career, classy guy, and he just looks so good tonight. Like the way he still snaps the passes around in the neutral in the offensive zone, defensively responsible as hell, great back checking, like everything he does out there is so good, and I'm really happy he's still here because he's getting older, man. He's an 87, right? So he's how many more of these Saturday nights against the Pens and Leafs do we have of him? It's
Yeah.
crazy to think about that, but like,
I think he's got a couple years. I think
no,
he's still
for
got a
sure.
couple
Like
years the way that he's skating.
3 or 4
Yeah.
more years, he'll still be around. But I just mean it's crazy how fast time goes. He looks so good for how old he is at this point.
Listen, man, all the people in the chat, all the crybabies in the chat got mad at me when I made fun of Ovi last time, just the way that he was chasing around,
Oh, it's the
the empty.
opposite feeling about Sid. Like I
Same.
couldn't love a man
Ovi's
more
out
than Sid.
here. Ovi's out here chasing empty netters like his life depends on it. I think he's got 5 goals and 3 of them are empty netters.
Of course,
He's
does.
just dying for him, right?
Yeah.
Dying for the stats. And Sid's just out here still trying to win, just dying to win hockey games and doing everything the right way and still playing competitive and just I'm with you. I had the first time I remember this feeling was actually Kobe Bryant because I hated Kobe. I watched him his entire career, but I've always been a lifelong Laker hater. And I'll never forget those like final couple Kobe seasons. Like, oh no, I'm never going to feel this way about an athlete the way that I felt about Kobe, where I'm like, just like, you're my villain, you're my foil, you're my heel. Yeah. And
I need you.
Dude, when he tore his Achilles and he was coming back, that's the hardest I've ever rooted for a player ever. I was like, come on, Kobe.
We need you.
I needed him. I needed Kobe back. Like, I just wanted Kobe back in my life. And that's how I feel about Sid is if you've followed Sid's career, you've hated him at some points, you've loved him at some points. Unless you're from Nova Scotia, then you've loved him the entire way, right? Like, then you've forgiven everything.
But you did hate?
Oh, buddy, when Sid punched that, I can't remember who he did, but he got down on a knee and he punched somebody in the dick from behind. That was an all-time low. Sid used to whine at the refs, man. He was a crybaby. I hated Sid.
Remember the Kovalchuk one? Or Kovalchuk, where he I don't know what he did.
Yeah, dude.
But
Sid
he got
was dirty and a crybaby.
And then Kovalchuk scored and skated right by the bench at the penalty box and pointed right at him. I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
I was a big Kovalchuk guy.
Yeah, he had heart. He was a heart and soul guy. But no, I know
I love Kovalchuk. Anyway, I'm with you. I get sentimental about Sid, but I don't like getting too much about it though, because I feel like Sid is going to be 39 years old and he's still going to be able to run a power play and be able to contribute.
He's very LeBron. The cross-sport reference is LeBron. Like just the smartness and the way he plays and like to me it's like, you'd never call Sid the GOAT, but like he's definitely like a top 5 guy for me in the history of the game.
I think that's a stretch for Sid, to be honest, but like he's top 10.
Buddy, this generation of players, it's like, every generation people have their arguments about their guy being one of the best ever, and Sid is one of the best guys ever. He is.
Sid is my lifetime all the way through prime the best guy.
For sure. No question.
But I still think that my way of doing this is different. I don't want to get into this. We're already at the 30-minute mark. I don't want to
you want to do GOAT talk? Who's the GOAT?
No. Yeah. Who's the GOAT? I will say that Sid should get a little bit more respect in that top tier of player than I think he does get, because I think people think it's like blasphemy if you try to put him into like the top 4 or 5. I don't think it's blasphemy. Like, I'll hear it. I just don't have him there personally. But I just think LeBron was just so much. It's hard to compare the sports because an individual can be so much more dominant, carry to titles. But like, ultimately, Sid hasn't competed for a cup in a while, and LeBron is just like you can drop him in wherever he goes, and they're automatically one of the favorites in the NBA. So it's hard to compare the sports to me. But I understand what you're making about like the cerebral guy who takes care of his body
100%.
And who just loves to play the game, and like every time you go buy a ticket, you feel like you're getting everything from that guy. Like you don't feel like you're getting cheated.
2 quick things. One more thing on Sid. Yeah. He's at over 1,500 points now, I think. I forget what his actual total is. It's crazy. If he didn't lose those 2 years there where he was like in and out of the lineup, he could actually be flirting with 2,000 points for his career.
For sure.
Which is wild. He won't get there now because it's so much. But if he was at like 1,700 or 1,750 at this point, what he would have had, because he was in the prime of his career when that happened, he would have been racking up the points. So he had 1,525 before tonight. So if he was up near 1,750, or that maybe a little bit to anyways. You know what I'm saying? He actually would
Yep.
have had a shot at it. So it's crazy. And the last thing, never do this. Quick ref corner. Last minute was an embarrassment by the refs. There was at least 4 penalties. Marner or Nylander's stick gets slashed out of his hand, which I hate. I hate that they call that. They call it every time. They called it like
No,
3
but that
times.
that one was a blatant, like, you got to call this.
They call that in Sweden
Yep.
3 times.
Yep.
And Tavares goes to the front of the net. Pedersen is legitimately headlocking him. He can't get to the front of the net. He's headlocking him. And then Jari bodies him, gives him a blocker in the back, puts him down. There was at least 3 or 4 penalties on that, and it would have maybe changed the game. You get a 2-man advantage or whatever. They at least weren't very good. They didn't deserve to win, but I thought the refs were a joke in the last minute of the game. And that's it for ref
Completely,
corner.
completely agree.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing, and the only reason I didn't really feel as fierce or forceful about bringing it up is
Yeah.
I just felt like the Leafs got the result they deserved tonight.
For sure, no question. And that's why I brought it up as a quick thing at the end of
Yep.
the show. But we never do ref corner, so I wanted to give them a little bit of a. All the people in the chat are probably saying the refs are terrible. Let's chum the waters a little bit.
No, all the people in the chat are still just mad at me because I dared say Ovi's a stat chaser.
Oh yeah,
God.
Yeah. Imagine watching Ovi in the last 2 years and not thinking that.
Yeah, I know. Anyway,
Okay.
it's fine.
Bash
It's
Ovi corner now.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Anyway, do us a
down.
favor. Hit the thumbs up button and leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe if you're listening. And if you ever miss this thing on YouTube, you can't catch it every single night. We ask that you do go to Spotify, Apple, whatever. Go there, leave a 5-star review, and hit the subscribe button. And then follow us on Twitter and Instagram at JD Bunkis, at Sammy McKee. And we will be back. Now there's actual games again.
We're in the rhythm, baby. We got Tuesday night against the Florida Panthers at Scotiabank Arena. They come back home, and then they play the Squids Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And then Saturday night is the Boston Bruins, baby. So big week for the Leafs, so stick with us.
Big week. Big week. I'm excited to be there for all 3 of them. Same with you. All right, we'll see you then. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you Tuesday night.